My name is Sophia Ehrich, and I'm an art historian, researcher, and consultant for multisensory experiences. My company, The Olfactory Contractor, coaches and consults museum practitioners and others on the educational impact smell can have on the public. It's my pleasure to welcome you as the host of the Internet of Senses Institute podcast for the Sense of Smell. And today I have Sam Wisniewski with me and Sarah Socia. Sam is a co-founder and president of OVR Technology and a pioneer in digital scent technology, working to bring smell into gaming, media, and immersive experiences. Sarah is the director of fragrance innovation and research and development at OVR Technology, where she develops scent cartridges and olfactory delivery systems for immersive digital experiences. And they're both part of OVR, a company developing scent-based technology for games and immersive experiences by adding real-time scents that are triggered by and what users are doing and or seeing, unlocking deeper emotional, educational, and immersive experiences for players. And their newest development is the Omara Scent Display, a compact, non-invasive piece of scentware, I love that word, that can distribute up to 16 different scents during gameplay. So yeah, thanks for joining the podcast today, Sam and Sarah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
So to start off, can you, Sam, give a quick introduction of what OVR technology is and what the problem is you're wanting to solve?
Yeah, OVR technology was really founded around the concept that scent is this vital piece of how we experience the world. It is directly linked to the limbic system. It influences cognition and behavior. It does all of these important things and has been omitted from kind of the digital space in its entirety. And with that, this kind of really key human experience is slowly being engineered away. And we wanted to address that and make sure that scent could be included across the digital media that exists and really influence and be able to impact people as we progress. And so we've gone on this journey of not just thinking about kind of the importance of scent, but ensuring that we solve the technical challenges and hurdles in getting scent as part of these experiences. So very fun to be a part of the process, but really important for us to make sure that scent is done correctly and that people have access to it, whatever they're doing.
And being part of such a unique company, what are each of your roles in OVR?
So as you introduced me, I am one of the founders and I have a interesting and kind of multidisciplinary background in everything from investment banking to like hospitality management and consulting, but really started my journey around the importance of scent with food, wine, and beverage, and then built that into contract fragrance. All of which is to say my role at the company also crosses a pretty wide range and everything from business and strategy, but also assisting in some of like the product direction and other areas. So as tends to happen when you're both a founder and part of a small team, you get to do a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sarah?
And I'm Sarah Socia. I'm the Director of Fragrance Innovation and R&D at OVR Technology. So my background educationally is in neuroscience, but I've kind of always had a theme of sensory sciences. As part of the research that I did early on in my career, it was around the taste system, one of our other chemical senses, and then actually worked at another one of Sam and his brother's other company, Alice the Magician, which was around flavor and fragrance development, and then kind of found the world of OVR, and I've been with the company for about 7 years now. I do everything fragrance related, including building the actual scents for the scent packs, to being able to test the product and how the scents are perceived, so really the psychology around it, as well as how it get integrated into the content. So that kind of full scope of the digital sense, really pulling in the neuroscience component, understanding our chemical senses from a psychology neuroscience, and to be able to think about how what that experience is really like from a also like an artistic side of things, which is a really fun blend. And then thinking about it from an innovative standpoint, which has really drawn me into being able to work at OVR on the cutting edge of the technology.
And what does a day look like for you? It sounds like a really fun job. So I'm wondering what kinds of things do you do when you work every day?
That's a great question. So it kind of depends on where we are in the development cycle. Right now, a lot of my time is going around for understanding how the product works from a sensory side of things. A few months ago, we were kind of finalizing our fragrances, which is a lot of iterative testing, where we'll work with master perfumer, fragrance houses, go through that iterative cycle of being able to create the fragrances and test them in our specific application. And on the more exciting thing, aspects right now is also just seeing how the scents are integrated into gaming. So working with developers, but also driving some of our internal content to think about like how smell is able to be used for digital content in kind of its own way, since it's different than our other senses of like vision and hearing, but also being able to leverage our understanding of like game design principles while overlapping that with the science side of things.
Yeah, so fun. Yeah, you must have a lot of fun also watching people interact with the games, right? And while their reactions of playing and sniffing and playing at the same time, right? That must be a fun experience.
100%. We were recently at PAX East where we had 10 demo stations open for people at PAX East, one of the big gaming consumer shows, and being able to see people have that like wow moment on their face when they like, pick something up in the game and they can smell it since it's so spatialized, but they're really blown away by the technology and also kind of the emotive components that come out as well. So it's always really exciting to see the product that we've been working on for many years come to life and how much joy it brings to people playing games.
Yeah. And so for both of you, you could either answer what's your favorite thing about your sense of smell, or you can answer how you ended up working with the sense of smell, because I think either is very interesting.
So I'm very much a sensorial person. I really feel that our sense of smell is one of the ways that we can understand the environment around us. So really thinking about like what makes the human experience so human and to be able to understand how chemical senses, whether it becomes part of flavor, thinking about how taste and smell really collide. I'm very much a foodie and also love cooking, but then also to think about how we're kind of in the digital age of things and to be able to see where both our digital scent technology is right now, thinking about innovation, and then also where it can go. So thinking about gaming, but other applications, and to be able to bridge the digital experience and the physical experience, thinking how smell is connected to memory and emotion and behavior. Like that is so wonderful to me, and to be able to be a part of that journey has been something that keeps me really excited to be continuing to work at OVR.
Yeah, and our experiences in the world are becoming more and more digital. So to bring such a human sense to that digital aspect is so important, I think, because we still need our sense of smell. If we keep gaining more digital experiences, it's important to have smell a part of that.
My son's about to turn 2, which is very fun and very exciting. But I think a lot about the scent memories that people reference. And it's often when people are, you're like, oh, let's talk about something that you remember a smell about. I feel like a lot of people talk about like their grandmother's house and the smell of cookies or the smell of whatever they cooked, or there's this very specific memory that gets tied to it. And a lot of like kids are experiencing their first like times with grandparents via FaceTime now. And that kind of like key component in how we experience the world and how our memories get filed and how we relate to the people around us, that idea that it could be lost is something that has been, on our mind as we've thought about kind of the building of this technology and the progression. So what you're talking about, kind of like engineering that out by more and more digital with less and less scent feels like a huge loss. So we're excited, and that's been a primary thing that I think about in kind of the building of the future of digital scent technology.
I haven't thought about that before. You gave me chills, but with that fact, like that, so many people are now meeting their grandparents over digital technology, and I hadn't thought about that before. Because yeah, I too have like a very strong connection with my grandma's house and the smell of it, and so to not be able to have that would be so sad. So I'm really interested in the topic of like how smell has been used in media in the past, and it's something I've done research on as well. So I was curious because it hasn't like smell and media, the pairing of those two have not been very successful in the past, especially with like scented cinema. And so I was curious about your perspective on that, like what you thought was missing, or if this had you facing any challenges when starting OVR, or when thinking about bringing smell to gaming. So yeah, that's kind of my
Yeah.
open thought process.
Yeah, I'll get started on the answer. One of the many pieces and many things that we've thought about, starting with just the concept that we know we're not the first ones to try it. And I think it's a very interesting part of this cultural understanding of how important it is that people keep trying. It's been like 100 years and longer that people have been trying to pair scent with digital media. And even though it hasn't worked, people still are like, we have to do this. So when we, had the idea and believed that this was a direction to go, we took a lot of the research, the history on kind of the why hasn't it? Why isn't this a thing that is out there and is prominent? And one of the key items that has always been an issue isn't the introduction of scent, it's how you make scent go away. Like you can use a scent diffuser to get scent into a room, but if scent is being pumped from far away, the amount of scent molecules in the air is so much that it can't dissipate quickly enough. So when we were thinking about what needed to be built, it was so important for us to ensure that it could react incredibly quickly, release a very small amount of scent, and be able to do it in proximity to the user so we didn't have to fill the airspace with scent. So the technology and the hurdles that we were trying to overcome, it was helpful to be in this era where we could get very small, very precise technology and be able to use it to disperse scent, where we can really control the amount of scent molecules in the air and that parts per million, parts per billion versions that people can notice, but then those can dissipate quickly so we can switch rapidly in between them. So I would say like from a strictly technology and scent perception purpose, the problem isn't getting the scent, the problem is making the scent go away. And that's what a huge amount of our kind of thought and effort on the technology went to. So yeah, with that, we've really kind of honed in on kind of what the right amount is, where the device needs to be located, and really thinking about it as a personal scent device as opposed to something that necessarily would be room scale.
Yeah, that's something that happened when they were using scent in cinema, that they usually put it through like the air con,
Yep.
which caused issues for what you're saying, like the commingling of scents, because once you put one out, it wasn't going away. So yeah, I mean, I was very impressed with the device, with how it just like it goes out and then, the smell is gone very quickly,
Yeah.
which is amazing, because that's a huge challenge with scent, is that it lingers or can
I,
linger.
yeah. And as Sarah alluded to, like scent works differently than sight and sound. Like we're not dealing with wavelengths, we're dealing with actual particles, which is the a constraint that we always have to be thinking about. There's a physical component to what we can do. And there's been versions of people who try to like take an electrode and put it up your nose to stimulate varying degrees of olfactory. And not that there might be not be a version of that that works in the future, but I don't think people are at the point yet where they're so excited to smell the movie they're watching where they're willing to go down that route. And I think thinking about it really from the control of the particles and what we can do with those and understanding the constraints of what we're working with has been a challenge, but also an interesting kind of constriction when you're designing something and you have blue sky to do whatever you want. Sometimes it can be a little bit helpful to say, these are the parameters we have to work in.
Yeah. Sarah, did you want to respond to that question?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sam touched on it quite well. It's really around the engineering, thinking about synchronization at the heart of it, the synchronization of the scent, the components with what you're experiencing in the digital environment, which really does boil down to being able to have the scents there and gone very, very quickly. And there's a million ways that you can engineer around it. And the way that we approach the problem is having a personal scent device that allows it to be there and gone by releasing just a small, small, tiny amount. The other aspect of it to think about is kind of the content that we're using for experiences and the ability to have the scents match up. So that synchronization there. So the cartridge system that we have, the cassettes that we have allow for being able to play up to 16 different scents, which really allows for being able to get a full sensory experience. So to be able to think about it from a synchronization, both from the scent side of things, the content side of things, and the device delivery side.
Yeah. It's really impressive how many scents you can have in this one cartridge.
Yeah. For those of you who haven't seen it in its size, it's a little bit larger than an AirPods Pro case. So the fact that we were able to create the tiny technology that can control and have a scent cassette that's small enough, replaceable, and can have 16 in something that size is something we're humbly proud of. It was a lot of engineering to be able to take something that does require physical media and shrink it to that size while also making sure that it stayed wireless and battery powered. So
yeah, because one of the challenges of using scent is that you often have to have a lot of different parts, right? Like if you're working, like I work in museums usually, and then you have to have the bottle of the perfume or the scent, and then you have to have the way that you're going to distribute the scent. And maybe you have like a paper that you're going to explain the scent with or whatever. And so it's amazing to have like this one small cartridge to be able to just have the power of 16 different scents and distribute so many times or puff out so many times. I don't know how you necessarily explain that, but I just found that really remarkable coming from the side of like, I'm always quite analog with how I use scent. And yeah, so I was amazed by it.
yeah, we appreciate that. And that part too, like thinking as we've thought about, the first version of a test that we did was just putting someone like having them experience digital and putting a cup that had scent in it by their nose to be like, hey, if we time that right, is it cool? Like you have to start with that to be like, oh, is this a good user experience? Is the scent perception, if it's timed correctly, does it add? So we started in the world of analog, and then the next steps were like, okay, how do we ensure that everyone who's going through it has the same experience and can do all of it automated? So the progression is natural, and it does create a little bit of like consistency as well as exploration that the users can do.
And the other side of it is the dynamic storyline element of digital experiences is that for like a museum and some of those aspects of it, you can have kind of you see something, you smell something in that one dimension that you can like move rooms or different areas. But with thinking about things on a screen or whether it's in virtual reality, that storyline ends up compressing quite a bit. So making sure that as part of the emotional component to keep up with that synchronization between the visuals and the digital scent experience is it allows to be able to think about that engagement on being able to have the multiple sensory experiences, the connection with smell multiple times through that journey, and to really change the dynamicism with the emotionality of the experience as well.
Yeah, that kind of goes to my thought when I was able to play the games with the Omara device. Something I noticed is I was really like I was so in tune with the smells that I was trying to figure out like what was coming next, like where is the smells. And so it was interesting to think about like adding smell to gameplay, how deliberate you have to be or think like, because there are some people like me that are probably, like waiting for the smells to happen. Maybe some people are like relaxed playing. I was very in tune with the fact that I was focusing on the sense. But I thought that was interesting, like when movies first added speech, for example, like people were very critical of it because then you're really thinking about the fact that, oh, now there's speech. So I was thinking about that in regards to gameplay. Like, is that a challenge that you guys thought of? Like how to add scent deliberately or in what areas you would add it? Or perhaps you just leave that up to the developer of the game to decide?
There's a learning curve. This is a new discipline. There's already sound engineering, and now there's a new discipline of scent design and scent engineering. And although we are pioneers in that and helping build it, we are relying on our development partners to kind of work, add some of their own creativity and kind of feed into the discipline and the process. But it isn't just a like, oh, I see this item, therefore I should smell it, because that could have the capacity to be either overwhelming or it could just not really add to the important elements in the game. So we do very much assist the game developers in the process and help like both get their feedback and help kind of guide where we can. But scent as a mechanic or scent as a way that changes how you play, as well as a tool that is just there for like immersiveness or presence. There's a few different ways to add and think about it. And I use the analogy, I like to think about using sound as kind of an analogy where in a game you might have sound effects and soundtrack, and sound effects can be used to create realism and represent what's there. And soundtrack can be used to create emotion and kind of connection and experience. And thinking about scent in a similar style of like, it doesn't always have to be a one-to-one ratio. It can really be used. Is it a tool that you want to have people be relaxed in the background? Is it something that helps with mood state? Is it something you want to use to build excitement? Like, where are the ways that scent can be used to really punctuate and add to the story? And so that's been a learning experience, but simultaneously super fun to get to build that new discipline and use the game developers as well as like Sarah and her team and sort of the psychology of scent to help drive those two things together.
Sarah, I think you wanted to add as well, right?
Yeah, so pretty much what Sam said. It really
Sorry,
is like
I stole your thunder on that one.
it's really like another paintbrush for the developers to use to be able to bring their worlds to life. But as Sam had mentioned, that the purpose behind it to be really mindful, because if you sound enable everything, it's like kind of like giving like sound effects to everything, where it's not necessarily adding additional meaning, but can even be overwhelming, especially when thinking about smell. But it really is up to the developers to be able to figure out what they want to do, how they want to utilize it. We do support them in kind of that exploration, especially coming from the science side of things, to be able to use what I call like best practices or like rules that you can use, but in the same way that in other art disciplines like music and just even like visual art, that you can learn all the rules, but some of the most interesting things are when you learn them very, very well, and then you intentionally break them. So to be able to think about how smell is not just a science, but also an art form, and that the developers at the helm are really the artists that we're able to provide them some of the scientific foundational understanding. They can leverage that, they can get to understand that, and then they can use it however they wish. So being able to provide the tools for the developers by just having a really pretty simple software plugin, but allows them to enrich their worlds with scent the same way our everyday physical lives have that enrichment of scent. And to be able to think about it using really creative constraints, just even given the 16 scents that we have available today for the first scent pack, but it allows them to be able to think about it for emotion or mechanics or ambient, to be able to drive the different components that they wish, depending on the game. So someone who might be making a horror game might be thinking about scent in a very different way than somebody who might be using it for a cozy game. But at the heart of it, it still might be the emotional component, or it might be adding into the gameplay of it, or even to think about being able to have the person who, as the player, to be able to even have creative outlets for the player themselves. There's a lot of different ways that scent can be added in. And it really is just kind of like a paintbrush that is almost like this contract even between the developers and the players to be able to create that environment for them for both sides.
Do you both have a favorite example of how someone has integrated the device into a game?
I have a couple. One of my favorite ones, we sponsored part of Global Game Jam, and one of the groups that came out of it from Rochester Institute of Technology made this game called Cupbearer, where you get a test to be able to see if the cups have poison in it. So it was a very scent-driven game where the mechanic is actually being able to detect scent and be able to detect which one has like the poison note in it. And so that one was super fun. And then another one of our partners that has developed this game called Akiwan, which is like kind of like a cozy survival crafter. The ambient noises, the music in that, which is from audio clips out of Canada, like the nature in Canada, and then that scent experience, those things combined make such a really engaging and immersive, and really brings the visuals to life in a lot of ways, and to really kind of draw you in from an emotional storytelling. So one example on kind of the game mechanic side of things and the game loop, and the other on like the immersive storytelling through gameplay that really complements the visual aspect of it. And it's not even like a high fidelity graphics, but between the music and the art and the smell component, it really is a really special experience.
Yeah, so I was able to play the cupbearer one, and that was my favorite because I really thought it was amazing how your sense of smell was then linked to knowledge. So this to me was so genius, like that you were able to understand your sense of smell as the core meaning of the game, but also that you're actually using it to lead you through the game to win the game, you could say. And in addition to that, it taught a bit of language around olfaction, which is challenging for all of us, right? Don't all know words around our sense of smell. And so being able to connect like something that you're smelling with the language and it was accessible was really, really cool, I thought. So genius game and so simple, but worked really well.
Absolutely. And even especially with the language thing that I really loved about that game is sometimes when people smell things, they might not even necessarily agree with what something smells like. But when in that game, you're taking a third party kind of seat to the sense of smell, where the developers in that actually chose what fragrance notes that they wanted to use as like the key clues. And then it's actually being able to think about the sensory experience from someone else's language to be able to match up where they might say pine cones, but to you it might smell like, Christmas candles or something, but you're using their language and how you relate your sense of smell language to their sense of smell language. And you learn that through the gameplay experience, which I thought is very cool, especially considering that a lot of the smell related language is often smells like X instead of having
Yeah.
something like color as like a red, orange, yellow, green. So
Yeah. It's really cool.
absolutely.
So, what has been one of the challenges of getting developers or studios or consumers to actually adopt smell as a part of the experience? Has it been a challenge? Or, like, have usually when I talk to people about what I do, they're like, why? So, I'm just curious, like, do people say, why do we want to add smell to games? Or is it something that they think is really, really cool and they're wanting to adopt it?
When you work in the world of smell, you're inevitably going to get whys from some people.
Yeah.
It's still that interesting piece that you're aware of, like because of how scent connects to our brains, it like bypasses our conscious brain, and therefore people tend to undervalue kind of all the things that it can do until you talk about it more, you do a little more education or ask a few questions. I still love that concept of like what people think food is. And like when you're thinking about flavor, it's like taste plus texture plus aroma. And people go, oh yeah, like I can taste this, I can taste that. And it's like, well, most of that is aroma. And like if you had no sense of smell, I could give you a raw apple and a raw potato and you're not going to know the difference. Like those little pieces of information help you get back into the level of like, oh yeah, this is special and important. So just thinking about, yes, of course we get some people who are like, that seems like a lot of effort and a lot of work, and I don't know why I would do it. But more universally, we get people who are interested and excited on the developer side of like, oh, this is a new creative tool. Oh, this adds a new layer. This is a new thing that we can do and we can build with. The complexity often comes right now from the two areas, which are people are already on timeline sprints, project plans, and integrating an entire new system and new discipline doesn't necessarily align with what their timelines are. We've made our tools and our plugins like simple as much as we can for integration, but there's still a little bit of a process that goes in. So there is a little bit of that. And then the other side of it is still on the fact that the product isn't available to the general market yet. So integration has to be kind of thought about and timed to when the product releases at the end of the year. So it's still aligning our product release timelines to the content release timelines, and they're not always perfectly there. So it's a little bit less of a like, that's a dumb idea, why would you do it? And a little more of a, that's cool, but like, let's figure out when and how this might work together, and if it works now, or if it works for the next game, or other different areas. So there is excitement, but some of it is just logistical in kind of when and how the release is.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point what you said, because this might be something just around the idea of olfactory storytelling or using scent as a medium, because I have that same challenge in my work where if I'm working with someone or working with in a museum, they're often like, that sounds really cool, but I have this other pile of work that I need to do. And so it becomes, because we're so used to our sense of smell sort of being an afterthought, it also becomes an afterthought in that work, or can, because adds an extra layer of work or an extra layer of knowledge or whatever that may be. And additionally, it's still an unknown to us, or can be, because many of us maybe don't even smell like deliberately every day. We just are, going about our lives. And so to actually hand someone like a physical scent and make them smell it actively is already just like in their face enough that they're like, wow, that was new. Even though
Yeah.
we don't think of it as new, but it is.
And I
Yeah.
think you touched on exactly the other thing that happens a lot with our technology when we do demos. Something that I think almost everyone at OVR believes is that smelling is believing, is that the first time people are actually get to see the technology, smell the experiences, the wheels start to turn and they're like, oh, this is cool. I can see it in so many different things. But because it is exactly like you said, smelling with intention or being able to see it really come to life. It's hard to like exactly imagine without being able to experience. So be able to have that multisensory experience with your sense of smell, I think really unlocks the floodgates for people and their wheels just start turning. They have so many different ideas. They say like, oh, what if we do this and this and this and this and this? And it always becomes like even people who start out skeptical, like after they actually do the demo, they're like, oh, I get it now. I understand. It's that truly moment of understanding that comes with smelling digital experiences.
And just one other thing to add on to that sort of that part of the skepticism, you started our conversation talking around like adding audio to screens, like when people first started talking. And I also think about the introduction in the gaming space of like haptics in your controller, which kind of started with the Rumble Pack. And you get the people who go like, oh, like why? Why, things are great as is. Why? And then you experience it a little bit and you don't necessarily know it's changing how you're experiencing it. But then when you go back to a version that's without the haptics or without the ability to have someone speaking online, it can feel like such a loss. So I think that there is an important part of technology adoption that happens as people get to try it and then see and experience the benefit. Like I'm sure the museum exhibits you go to, people experience it with scent the first time. And then if they were to bring a friend there and say, hey, check this out, and scent no longer existed, they'd be like, well, this isn't quite as good as it could have been. And those moments, they take time to build, but they're so important in the sort of cultural adoption of new technologies.
And I always find it fascinating because it's the same in gaming. The hierarchy of the senses. You have like first was sight, then was sound. Now you're talking about like haptics, and now we have smell. But it's the same in the museum. Like we're so much more used to touching things in the museum now on purpose. Like they introduce these elements more often than smell. Now smell is coming in, hopefully. Still less so, but the aspects of touch are coming more or before smell, which is interesting that this also happened with gaming.
Yep. So there's people deep down know that they experience the world through all their senses, but there's just no way around the idea that like until you've experienced something or someone has told you or something is truly possible, that you're going to be craving it. And until recently, scent hasn't been truly possible. So why would you be looking for it? And then as people find out, they'll go, well, obviously I smell the world. I would love to be able to experience scent through a digital media as well. So it's an education journey, but I I think it's fun to go on.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the Omara scent display because I'm sure none of the listeners have played it quite yet, or maybe some have. But can you explain how it works? What would you experience if you were playing it for the first time? Just kind of walk us through that experience.
Yeah, I'll take the general lead and then Sarah can get as the kind of it's a scent perception device. It's not just cool hardware. Like everything is built around making the scent perception quality. So the short explanation on the technology is the product we're releasing is called Omara, and it is a small piece of micro technology. As I mentioned, it's a little larger than an AirPods Pro case. I'll hold it up for those of you who can see. And everything is really kind of focused on the concept of the three interconnected points that kind of build this technology, which is the hardware, which actually is what physically can release the scent, the scentware, which are the physical scent creation, and the scent cassette, which is how we build and experience the scents, and the software, which is the layer that allows the environment in the game to translate to the device and wirelessly trigger the right amount of scent at the right time so that the visuals and what's happening synchronize with the scent on a super fast rate. So ultimately, the short piece on how the technology works is we have kind of our IP and patents are around using piezoelectrics, air, and a series of rapidly moving microvalves to be able to control air moving over the different scented media and releasing the particles that come from the scented media. And all of that happens with a replaceable scent cassette that is very kind of small and easy to take out and has all 16 channels baked into a single cassette. So you don't have to think about using, well, very small tools to replace a single scent. And then the software layer is a combination of Unity and Unreal plugins, which are the currently primary like gaming building software tools, as well as a few other API calls that can directly trigger the device by using Bluetooth wireless signals. So all of that is to say, you get to play the game. It automatically recognizes your behavior and sends a signal to a small device that sits about 9 to 12 inches from you and can trigger the scent in less than half a second and then switch rapidly in between those scents. Sarah, did I miss any of the key important things, or have I covered the basis of kind of what Omara is?
Definitely covered the bases. The one other thing I will add on to that is that the your scent experience doesn't impact the person sitting next to you because it is so small. I know this was probably kind of alluded to, but being able to have the scent be triggered kind of the 9 to 12 inches away from your face, that what I'm smelling, the person could also be playing their own game, like what we had at PAX East, and they can't smell what you're smelling. That's one of the really cool things about this is because it's a personal scent display that it's very contained from that social contract standpoint.
And how about during gameplay? How do the scents work then while you're playing a game?
So when you're playing a game, the developer has already kind of embedded the sense into the gameplay. So in the same way that kind of like sound effects or ambient scents come in or sounds come in, as you start walking around, it can tell where you are in space. So like if I was playing a Minecraft mod and I was, walking into a forest biome, it automatically knows where you are, and then it tells the device to release, let's say, the forest scent, if that's what the developer wanted that experience to be. You could even have it where you pick up a flower, and as you bring the flower closer to you, you're getting a stronger sense of like a floral scent. One of my favorite ones in our Minecraft mod is actually petrichor, so the smell of rain. So as soon as it starts raining on the screen, that you're actually getting released from the device our petrichor scent to be able to smell the rain, and then it's gone. As soon as the sky opens up and it's a sunny day, then it turns off the scent, and it kind of can come in at waves for ambient. For the spatial scent, it's as you kind of have that proximity trigger. Event-based scents are another one where like, you have low health and you could trigger something that's like, hey, you have low health, but based off of a smell notification cue.
That's cool. I like that one.
Lots of different ways to be able to use smelling games.
And I do think that, yeah, that part of like seeing your digital interactions actually trigger the scent is such a unique moment of like it makes sense. I pick up a flower in real life, I bring it to my nose, I smell it, I expect to smell, but that ability to have your control in a digital space actually trigger sense. Those moments tend to be the first moment of wow, as opposed to like there's a lot of ways scent can add value in different layers, but that first moment where you do something and scent exists, like is such an instantaneous and fun reaction. So building the plugins to have the action and proximity based triggers was a key element in ensuring that we could create complex and robust both game and general digital experiences.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing that if you bring something closer to you, that it becomes stronger in scent. I think that's a really great part. How did you decide on the scents in the scent cartridge? There's 16 of them. So I was curious, and please mention some of them, but I was curious how you chose them. Did you have specific games in mind when you chose these smells? What was your process behind deciding these?
Sarah, I
Yeah.
should probably answer this one, right? This is, no, I'm kidding, of course.
The scent cassette was a lot of fun to be able to create thinking about gaming in mind. We weren't necessarily thinking about a specific game, but thinking about what gaming, bringing gaming to life, what that would smell like. So one of the things that we were thinking about is making the scents categorical or thematic to be able to be used across a wide variety of games, being able to think about the cozy gaming space where you have a lot of nature scents, to be able to think about environmental scents that actually come up a lot. So things like forest, we have like an evergreen scent. We have things that's like a marine scent, an iconic beach scent, which is more kind of like sunscreen or the idealized smell of beach, where the marine scent has kind of notes of like seaweed and has more of that saltiness to it. To be able to think about things both from the environmental side of things, but then also from the emotional side of things. So ones that really, really resonate with people. I mean, there's always the food side of things. So we have a sweet and a savory spice, but the sweet also thinking about it in terms of like, people sweet as like a reward thing, like you defeat a boss and then you can get a sweet smell. And so it's like a really fun mix of art and science when it comes down to it, because they are actual like compounds, chemicals themselves to be able to think about working with, but thinking about it categorically of like, here are some big categories that we can use. And then also thinking about it from the standpoint of wanting the scents to be pleasant. You always get asked about kind of the what we call malodors, but be able to have something where people want to come back to it. We worked with malodors a little bit in the past for other applications, but in the same way that people don't kind of smell nasty smells in real life, they and avoid them, the same thing would happen in gaming. So thinking pleasant scents, categorical scents that can map to a lot of different things, thinking about it from both the environmental, but also the emotional things, and then to think about like what could have like a purpose in the gaming. But it's also a mix of art. There's 16 slots, so to be able to pare that down and to be able to make something engaging. But it was a lot of fun, a lot of iteration, a lot of smelling.
Is there a dream smell that you want to develop in the future?
Ooh. I got a lot on my list of things that I would love to develop. Out of the scent pack we currently have, the scent petrichor has been one of my favorites. It's like the smell of rain hitting the pavement. So it actually has this compound called geosmin in it, which is just such a beautiful smell. And it adds like such a realistic, it's yeah, especially when paired and synced up with the visuals, it's just amazing.
That's also a very recognizable smell. Everybody talks about that. Well, they don't necessarily know it's petrichor, but everyone will talk about the smell of rain and that's one of their favorite smells as well. So it's a recognizable scent. Sam, did you want to add anything?
I will just add, like what Sarah alluded to, people in the gaming space often have ideas about what they think they want to smell. And often it like can be in a horror game where they're like, oh, wouldn't it be so cool to smell like the dead bodies? And you're like,
No.
that concept, it makes sense from a like, oh yeah, this game and this has this key element. That's a very extreme version, but there also is just other versions that we did in all of our testing where we had the opportunity for people to try the sense that they thought that they wanted. And it's interesting to see like how they interact with those scents and the ones that Sarah worked on, all the testing, all the work she did, all the different people we had experienced the sense to narrow it down to these is because that sort of like first reaction isn't always what people truly want. And I find that to be a fascinating like that knee-jerk reaction when you tell people they can smell their game doesn't translate to what they actually enjoy. And when you let people truly think about and then experience, they go, oh yeah, no, you're right. I do want like more pleasant smells, or I would like it to be guided in this direction or to fit in these places. So I think the level of information that we got through our ability to work with users was a fun part of the process. And that kind of ongoing both game developer and user feedback is going to allow us to continue to drive and think about our future scent cassettes.
Yeah, and when I interviewed Aaron, this was 5 years ago, I guess, for the first Internet of Senses Institute podcast on smell. One of the things he was talking about was actually creating scents that would be only within gameplay or within
Yeah.
at this time VR, which I think is really interesting, like to think about sense that you would actually create memories in a game with a specific smell. Is this something that you guys have thought of
You're
still?
stealing our thunder on the future of no. We still actively talk about what we call digitally native scents, which are the concept around using things that aren't necessarily exact replications of what we experience in the world. And I'll let Sarah speak a little bit more to the sort of categorical designs that she spent a lot of time and effort on, but some of them skew in that direction. And I'll stop there, Sarah, and let you take the lead on that.
Yeah, so even with some of the scents that we have with the categorical, we were trying to make them familiar but not necessarily recognizable, is the words that I like to use around that, which is essentially trying to say that it is like this obfuscated citrus rather than necessarily being like a Sicilian lemon per se, so that it can be able to use what I like to call olfactory illusions, where the visuals can actually change the perception of the scent, similar to how just like labeling a scent can change the perception of it. But in the same way, like scent native memories, or even just the skewing of what a scent smells like based off of like the other sensory inputs, whether they be like just a different visual with being able to use the citrus when you see an orange or citrus when you see a lemon to be able to bend that perception, but also thinking about how each scent signature can be pretty unique, even if it's something that is slightly different, to be able to generate scent native memories, or even from a gaming perspective, being able to have a game developer really claim what that scent means to the game. So in the same way, like that Mario coin noise is really iconic. It's not, this left field sound that no one's ever heard of, but it is so signature to the game, where when you hear that sound, you're not like, oh, that's like whatever the pitch or noise, the note is from like a classical standpoint, but like, oh, that's the Mario coin noise. Like I just got a coin kind of thing. And it really can transport you back the same way that smell can transport you back. And even in some ways, I think can be even more powerful when thinking about the connection between smell and memory, and thinking about how transportive it is with smell, to be able to create digitally sent native memories around smells themselves, and to be able to really anchor some component of a game to really be able to define it.
That's exactly what I was talking to my husband about yesterday, because we were playing the games with Omara device, and that came up, like the fact that there are sounds that are so like signature or almost like branding of a game, like the Super Mario, exactly, like a coin or even music. And so thinking about that from a smell perspective, like what is the smell of Zelda or the smell of Mario, that to me is very interesting. And it would be a challenge, I think, to create it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the other side of it is that, especially when you think about like music scores in games that become so iconic, that even the pattern of the smells together sequentially could be able to create a signature smell in some ways, thinking about how different pattern humans love patterns. Their brains are pretty wired for it. So to be able to think about like the synchronization, if you play like beach, barnyard, citrus, and that just becomes this thing that is kind of like Pavlovian response in the game, that people can kind of use it the same way that you can hear like when you're like get an email or something, even on that side of things, to be able to get a sound signature, or in this case, a scent signature.
And one other kind of related piece that I think about is like taking whatever that emotional connection, either in a game, the first time you experience scent in that game, like that becomes a special and precious moment if you love that game. But also in building some of those ties to that emotion that can exist in other ways, whether the cozy game you found relaxing and that associated scent then becomes relaxing to you, and being able to think about that sort of the scent loop in our emotional and our behavioral pieces feeding into each other so that it can be used both with the game but also to help trigger an emotion that we have control over in the future.
I also think that there's also this bi-directionality between digital scent experiences and the physical world, where by being able to artfully use digital scent in the digital space could also elicit like being more present in the physical world, or even to be able to get the language in from the digital spaces and being able to upgrade kind of your scent skills, if you will, and be able to translate that to be really like kind of bring some mindfulness or presence into a very fast pace ever, be able to catch the smell of rain and be like, oh, this reminds me of, the game, or to be able to be more present in the everyday world, or even if you're smelling some spices, we have a savory spice smell, just to be able to put language to smell that translates from physical to digital and vice versa.
Yeah, and you're sort of raising awareness of using your sense of smell as well, because if you're making it more common in gameplay, then it's more common maybe in your everyday life, just like you said. Because I know for me, like ever since I started working more deliberately with scents, I now realize that I smell in my dreams. I
Oh,
never
that's so
realized
cool.
that before, but it had never happened before I started working with scent. But now that I work with scent very deliberately, like I often notice that I smell in my dreams. And so I think it's just like, my brain being more aware of my sense of smell. And so I think that is a very powerful thing, not only for experiencing the world more deeply, but also just, it's better for our health. And there's so many benefits of interacting with our sense of smell. So it's really cool. It's time to wrap up. So I just wanted to give an opportunity for you to talk about what's next. What's the plan for the release of the Omara device? Anything you want to share about the next scent that you're developing or anything like that?
So for kind of like where we are, where the company is, I'll start with just the very specifics, which is the Omara is officially going to be sent out to consumers at the end of this year, but we are launching our pre-sale side of things with a Kickstarter that will begin on May 19th. So for those who are interested in what we're doing, building this technology and getting also some sweet deals on the first versions of the device. May 19th is when the Kickstarter launches. And then through that timeline, we're in manufacturing now, all to deliver the hardware at the end of the year and continuing to build partnerships with new games, new environments, and thinking about a future of like all the content that you'll be able to use with the game, as well as kind of the features that come with the companion app. So all the ways to be able to kind of control it from an app specific functionality. So very specific to kind of the device, the direction now. I mean, we're excited to be continuing to build and get this in the hands of more people. And then kind of thinking a little bit more in the long term is scent is a part of the world in everything that we do, like in the real world. Scent is constantly influencing us, whether we necessarily know it or not. And so thinking about since starting in the gaming space where there's a lot of fun interaction, there's a lot of ability to play around with it. There's also people who are excited about new technology, but scent belongs in a lot of our digital experiences. So even as we're building this kind of direction, there's still areas in kind of integrations into health and wellness and other kind of verticals and applications where scent has a lot of power. So even though we're gaming focused for now, we want to ensure that people who are interested in scent have a place in the digital world. So there's a lot of opportunities and co-development that's happening in the background. So scent as a ubiquitous piece of our digital lives is something to always think about in the future.
Great.
And the other thing I will say on the scent development side is that's a little bit under wraps, but if you follow our socials and you kind of keep on along there or even comment ideas, there we're very close with kind of tracking the comments, what people are wanting to be able to smell, whether it's in games or other digital spaces, and to take ideas from that, but also we'll probably be teasing out some of the scent ideas that we'll have coming in the future.
Great. I'm super excited for you. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And yeah, I'm excited to continue to follow OVR and continue to play games.
We love it. Thanks so much for smelling. Thanks for chatting with us today. Always good to talk to fellow scent enthusiasts.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we appreciate it and are also excited for the future of scent and continuing to chat and educate.